So in this short video, I'm going to speak about what I believe to be the truth about weight loss motivation and how you can really keep it up over a long period of time, because we all recognize that in order to achieve any goal of any significance, we're going to have to sustain a certain level of motivation in order to get the job done. And the challenge that I see people having is trying to sustain really high levels of motivation whilst trying to lose weight. And more often than not, people can't sustain it. Because they can't sustain it, they end up giving up. So in this short presentation, I'm going to explain to you 3 different situations where I believe you need high levels of motivation. And then I'm going to explain to you and describe to you how I think you can lose weight by keeping your level of motivation at what I consider to be a sensible level. I'm going to use a scale of 1 to 10 to describe this, 1 being the least motivated, 10 being the most motivated. So let's get started with the first situation where you're going to need, I believe, a high level of motivation. So situation number 1, this is where you are going to require, I believe, a high level of motivation, and I'll tell you what level at the end once I've described it. And it's where you're making that first phone call. You know, a lot of my clients have said to me before they picked up the phone, you know, it just seemed like the hardest thing in the world to do. And you may be wondering, well, why is that the case? Well, if you're anything like any of the clients I have worked with, they already knew before they picked the phone up that they were going to need to change their mindset in order to achieve weight loss. They already knew they were going to have to make some dietary changes and take some exercises. So knowing that they know this, and then having the thought in their head they're going to make a phone call, possibly to a complete stranger, to speak about something that they believe they should be able to do by themselves, to have a complete stranger tell them things they already know, almost seemed unbearable and required that high level of motivation to pick up the phone and make the call. And in terms of what level of motivation is required for this, I would say anywhere between an 8 and a 10. You know, it can be a serious hurdle to get over for people, but understand it's a short-term thing. And depending upon who you're calling, it can be quite a pleasant conversation. So understand it doesn't last forever. Be brave and understand it's only going to get better after that first phone call. But I do believe you need a high level of motivation to make that first phone call. But I say it does get better. Let's move on to the second situation. Okay, we're into the second situation where I believe you're going to need a high level of motivation. And that's when you have the face-to-face consultation with somebody. Now, ideally, it shouldn't require quite the same level of motivation as that initial phone call, especially if that phone call went well. You know, if you had good rapport and you felt as though the person was listening and it was a pleasant conversation, then going to meet somebody face-to-face shouldn't require that same level of motivation. If the call wasn't that good, and you're having to sort of force yourself out of the house to go and see somebody that you don't know from Adam, then once again you could find yourself needing a level 8, 9 or 10 in terms of level of motivation to turn up at that facility. But there's some good news, it's going to get better. But before it gets better, I'm going to explain to you just one final situation where I believe you need a high level of motivation. So this is a scenario, a level 10 motivation scenario, where I think you need a high level of motivation. And it's one that unfortunately a lot of people find themselves in, or almost unwittingly find themselves in this situation, because maybe they've seen some fantastic advertising, they've seen some great before and after pictures, and they're going to throw themselves into something that they believe is going to be the answer. And I think you need a level 10 if your approach is going to be a hardcore approach. And what do I mean by a hardcore approach? Well, it's one where there's actually no time for you to acclimatize to the new habits that you want to develop. It's pretty much, this is the way you're doing it, this is the way you're going to think about it from day one. The diet is so rigid that any deviation from the diet in your mind would potentially lead to failure. And the exercise regime requires you to put in, you know, a significant period of time. It could be well over 60 minutes on a daily basis in order to get the results that's been promised to you. So if you're following that sort of approach, all I can say is good luck to you, because I've seen lots of people in the past, you know, from military backgrounds who have struggled to sustain, you know, such high levels of motivation for any period of time. So What I'm going to do now is going to explain to you what levels of motivation you should be aiming for, and why that's the case if you approach weight loss in a particular type of way. So let me explain that to you now. So here we are then. So what is a sustainable motivational level that you should be aiming for? So let me first of all provide the backdrop as to the type of program that I think will allow you to operate at a level below the ones I've already described. So if you found a program that has a holistic approach to weight loss, one which allows you to develop your mindset from where you are right now. And I'll say that again because it's quite important to understand this. You'll have a particular mindset now about weight loss. You'll have certain beliefs about exercise, about diet. And if somebody can take you from where you are now and lead you to where you're going to get the sort of results you want, that's a good start, because they're meeting you where you are, which I think is good coaching. Second part is if somebody can take you from where you are now in terms of your eating habits right now, because chances are your eating habits are not particularly good. That's why you are looking to lose weight. But it needs to be a progressive approach. It can't just be, in my opinion anyway, stop eating that, start eating this, eat more of this, eat less of that. That sort of dictatorial approach, I'm not saying it doesn't work for people, but I'm not convinced it's sustainable over the long stretch. Then the final part is exercise. Once again, it's having an exercise program that's going to take you from where you are right now to where you want to go. So if you've got those three things in place, where they're taking you from where you are mentally, nutritionally, and physically, and it's a progressive program that's pretty much leading you by the hand step by step, I have seen people lose anywhere from 10 pounds to over 110 pounds using this approach. Why is it so effective? It's effective because without you even realizing it, you are growing, you are developing, you are learning new skills, and you're doing it in such a way that you almost don't realize you're doing it, because the person started you off from where you are, as opposed to saying everything you're currently doing is wrong, ditch that, do it this way. That sort of progressive approach, in my opinion, would only require you to be operating at around about a level 5 and a 6 consistently. Now, I'm not saying you'd never ever have to operate at an 8, 9 or a 10 even, and you possibly would occasionally. There are going to be times when you are faced with unplanned situations that are going to test your resolve. You're going to have your own niggling doubts in the back of your mind. Can you really do this? All those things are going to sort of pop into your head. And that's when you may occasionally need to call upon motivation at a slightly higher level. But if the things you're being asked to do mentally, nutritionally, and physically are progressive, then really 5 and a 6 should be enough. And I say, if you're operating at that sort of level over a period of time, you'll find you can sustain it, and you'll get to your goals in record time with very little stress on your mental well-being. So hopefully you found that of use. If you have, I'm going to give you an opportunity to maybe, possibly, give me a call. So here we go. This is that potentially high level of motivation requirement. And that's to give me a call for a free, no obligation discussion about your health, your fitness, and your weight loss goals. And you can either email me on consult@cmstrim.co.uk or give me a call on 01980 595 502. And it'll be a relatively short call, maybe sort of 10-15 minutes or so. I'll just find out where you're at, what you're currently doing, what you want to do. That'll give me an opportunity to sort of understand where you are a little bit better. Once I've got that understanding, I can then give you an idea of how we work in terms of the program, the content, talk to you a little bit about any costs that would be involved, and then if that all matches up, at that point we could potentially arrange to meet face to face. So you can rest assured during that initial first call, there's no selling, there's no buying to be done. It is literally a conversation to find out whether or not there's a good fit. So hopefully it doesn't require such a high level of motivation, but I do appreciate it does require some motivation. And I hope to hear from you. Bye for now.